You gotta make your happy ending. This shit don't just happen.
The clip at the front was by Marcus Walker, Lawrence's dad, said one of the most profound statements in this series that all the characters in this series can actually heed to. You make your happy ending. The shit doesn't just happen. Smart words to live by. So with that, we're actually going to do the character sketch for Insecure, Season 3, Episode 8, the finale, Ghost-like. And the ghost-like theme is apparent throughout the whole episode, because on this particular day is Issa's 30th birthday. So she's transitioning out of her 20s. Because remember, at the very beginning of the series, she was 29. She has just turned 29. At the very beginning of the first episode in season 1. Now at the last episode of season 3, she's transitioning. She's turning 30. Which is really odd because we've had 3 seasons and a lot of stuff happens. A lot of relationship happens. But the thing is, we know very little about these characters. We don't know their ages. We don't know who their parents are. We barely know their names. These are literally archetypes that are thrown together that say lines, which is an interesting way to actually do a series. We know more about where they work and what they drive and what they drink and what they eat than basic things like ages. Like other than Issa, we didn't know how old Molly was, or Tiffany is, or Kelly, even Lawrence. We didn't find out how old Lawrence was until this season. Found out he was 32. So it's an interesting way to do things, an interesting way to write. I guess if you make the characters not nebulous, but kind of fluid, then people can actually see themselves in the characters, which is interesting. Anyway, since we started off with the Honorable Captain Marcus Walker, we shall start with Lawrence. Now, when we first see Lawrence, he's down in San Diego at the naval base, and he's meeting his father, Captain Walker, which makes a lot of sense because, like we say, Lawrence is kind of bougie, but he's also very neat and clean. And now we know where he gets that from. He comes from a military background. So he meets his father, and he sees him this particular trip. And like a good dad, he asked him what he wants, because I think I was telling one of my subs that children go to their mothers for sympathy, but they go to their fathers for information and wisdom. So like a good father, he knows that his son hasn't just driven all the way down to San Diego to see him just to say hello. So he asks, what's up? And of course, Lawrence being Lawrence, he says nothing really, but his father gives him the side eye and says, well, how's Issa? We're talking, and that's a good thing considering. So his father says, ask. So you guys are not done? No. Lawrence says, no, we're done. So he asks the next question, because this is his son. So are you dating? And Lawrence says he's trying, but he can't find, I guess he says he can't find a good one because every woman he meets is needy or demanding or this or that, or divorced. Something that will come up later. And his father says relationships take work. Lawrence says he knows. You know how kids or young adults, especially millennials, say, yeah, I know. They know, but they don't really know. So he, like most children, they think that their parents' relationships are easy. Because when they see their parents normally are not fighting and arguing and throwing a fit. So Lawrence says, when you and Mom met, You guys met, you guys got married, it was easy. And his father says, you think your mother is easy. And Lawrence says, I just want to meet, I would just want to meet a woman without any baggage, just like you and mom. And his father says, me and your mother had matching luggage. And we just got together and put in work. And he says something very profound. You kids, which is millennials, don't want to put in any work. You expect the perfect person just to show up so you can get married. And boomers and Gen Xers growing up knew that it was never true. You pick the most suitable person, and then, like Captain Walker says, you put in work. And then right after that, he says that clip. You have to make your happy ending. The shit just don't happen. And you can see the knowing look in Lawrence's eyes. And it kind of carries him throughout the rest of the episode because there is a change in Lawrence. Because the next time we see him is at the, what we call the cemetery, because they're having a movie night at the cemetery. And this is where Molly has chosen to take Issa for her birthday because Issa is a fan of the movie The Last Dragon. And when Lawrence is coming through the line, he says, I should have known that you were here because, like I said, Lawrence knows what she likes and they interact. And you can see the relaxation that he has with Issa. Like he's not uptight, he's not stressed, he's not overly concerned. It's almost like a weight has been lifted off his shoulder. You can see just the mere fact of what his father told him and that wisdom had soaked in, which is something I like about Lawrence. When Lawrence hears wisdom, he accepts it, which is unique about his character in this series. Whether he likes it or he doesn't like it, when he hears wisdom, he accepts it for what it is. Now on Twitter, a lot of the women didn't like it because they saying Lawrence is actually sending out weird vibes, which all he's doing is sending out friendly vibes, being himself. He's relaxed now. But you can see he's kind of let what was between him and Issa go. Even when he meets her later and he brings her some raisinets, just like the raisinets she has on her counter in the previous episode, and tells her happy birthday. And he sits down and he chats with her and asks her about her project. And he's truly concerned. You can tell the tension is not there anymore. And he can vibe with her as a friend because now he has a place for her, which relaxes her. And she's not, you can tell they're flowing and she's not uptight with him anymore. It is the first time that Issa really doesn't control Lawrence's emotions, which I think is significant. He can truly be himself without wondering about what she thinks or what she's going to disapprove of. Now, later on, and we're going to skip around, this is not a recap. This is more of a sketch. This is more of an analysis. So we're not going to go in order because these scenes kind of weave in and out with the characters meeting each other. But the event that's happening right now is being given by a Condola, which is the lady that Lawrence happened to have met at Tiffany's when they were actually explaining the paintings. And Condola is actually giving a speech about how she put this thing together and what it took and how she loves her people and wanting to do an event for her people, which we find out this is why Lawrence is there, because the next scene we see him sitting at a bar in a restaurant waiting on somebody. And guess who comes strolling in, which is Condola. She sits down and she says, I thought I scared you off because I told you I was divorced, which goes back to what Lawrence was complaining about to his father, which is probably why he came all the way down there to see his father, because he met a woman that he truly fits him, or he believes that he fits him, but there's something that's not perfect about her, which I think his father actually picked up on. And it looks like Lawrence is taking his father's sage advice. You have to make your happy ending. The shit just doesn't happen. And it looks like Lawrence is actually taking his advice and saying, look, she's not perfect. She's got baggage. I've got baggage. So evidently this is matching luggage. And he says, and he makes a joke to make light of the situation. He says, wait till I tell you about my DUIs. She looks real serious. She said, multiple DUIs. And she says, how many? He says, well, I don't like to count. And she picks up the joke. Now, Candola is bougie. She's one of the bougie crew. Tiffany calls her crazy crew. The bougie AKAs that set up a party that Issa and Molly, they liked them, but they didn't cotton to them because they are in a slightly different class. And we know by Lawrence and his father why Lawrence is bougie. Because Lawrence comes from a different class of people, which was never explained earlier. And it seems that Candola is more of a fit for Lawrence than Issa is. But we shall see, since this is the last episode. They did leave us hanging. Now, in order, let's go to Molly. Now, like I said, this is intertwined. Molly has planned Issa's birthday. And the first scene we see we'll see Molly without Issa is she runs into, guess who? Nathan, as she's coming to Issa's house to pick up Issa for her birthday. And maybe she shouldn't have, but I don't blame her. She defended her friend's happiness. She short-stopped him just like she did Daniel. Molly doesn't like people that she doesn't think is good for Issa around Issa. Molly is Issa's bulldog. She short-stops Nathan because Nathan has a bouquet of flowers coming in to kind of make amends. And we find out Nathan has been ghosting for a month. So Molly says, you've been ghosted for a month without a call, without a text, and you come in with flowers on her birthday. You are not going to ruin my friend's birthday. You're not going to ruin her happiness. She's going to be happy on her birthday. And she scoots Nathan off. Let's go back a bit. Right after the birthday lunch, we see Molly in her office. And she's taking Issa's advice because Issa has told her that she has alienated Torian by doing some shady stuff, by going behind Torian's back, giving a presentation before he had a chance to look at it. So Issa has told her to take Torian to lunch to make up for it, which Molly doesn't like. She says that is a double standard for men and women. When men do it, it's being aggressive. When women do it, it's shady. So she makes a joke. She says, I'll take Torian to lunch and tell him he's pretty, which is a backhanded joke. She's going to treat him like a woman. So she comes into work and she's asking if Torian is free for lunch to the secretary, and says, no, Torian's in with the partners and they're asking for you. So she walks in, she finds out that her and Torian are taking co-lead on this new account that they have. And you could tell Torian is uncomfortable because they've told him something and he's basically eating his lunch. He's never really liked Molly. And I don't think Molly's ever really liked him because they're competitors. And since Molly has gone behind his back, he doesn't trust her. But the thing is, he's got to have a good face in front of the partners. So he says the contrite thing by saying how she's a good go-getter and she's a good teammate to work with and blah, 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 blah. You can tell he says it out of the side of his mouth. So Molly Mask has actually alienated her coworker. She goes to pick up Issa. They go to the cemetery. And at the cemetery, she takes Issa, she's taking Issa, and we're already, I already told you this at the cemetery there. She's showing the movie. So she has her blindfolded. And she takes her in and she shows her that this is the movie showing of The Last Dragon. And Issa is excited. She's going to have a little wine. She's going to hang out with her girls. Kelly is saving her spot. And they're going to have a good time. And that's when Lawrence comes walking up and they have this little interaction. And, and they're finishing each other's sentence, just like a good couple would. And Lawrence says he's got to walk off because he's meeting Chad. And as Lawrence is walking away, you can see Issa looking at Lawrence walk away, and Molly says, "What are you looking at?" He says, "I'm just reading this shirt." She says, "Uh huh." But as they're walking in, Molly is saying that how she got the account and how she's gonna move up and she's gonna be back on partner track. Yeah, Molly is. Molly is bougie, and she loves Issa. But sometimes Molly can say things gonna hurt people's feelings. Like she told Issa's project, and she called Issa's a little project, and Issa took offense. But Molly has been doing that. The Molly mask has been hurting people's feelings, and some of that is because of Dro. She instead of letting the inside Molly out, she has actually gone deeper and deeper into that fire Molly persona. And we see more of that judgmental fire Molly persona when she actually sees Jared. She's going for popcorn inside the popcorn line, during the movie, and she sees Jared and sees Jared in line, and Jared's getting popcorn, and they meet up and they chat and says how he's doing. He's telling he's regional manager. He's moving up. He's doing a lot better. And a guy comes walking up and says, "Okay, I saved the blanket over there." And he takes the popcorn and he's going on back. And Molly looks at him because they seem like they're too friendly. So Molly assumes that Jared is gay. That's Jared's boyfriend. And she runs back like she's seen a ghost. In fact, she bumps into Lawrence and said, "Did you see a ghost?" Basically, that's what you're seeing. You're seeing the ghost of relationships past. She sees Jared. Lawrence is there. Even Kelly. Kelly is seeing a couple of her old boyfriends at this meetup. But there's one thing I want to get to Kelly. I'm going to get to that later because I'm shocked that it was said, but on Twitter and in the reviews, nobody said anything about it. But I'm going to get to that later. So Molly comes running back and she's telling everybody that her instincts are right because Molly's been on this thing that their instincts are right about people. Her instincts are right about her job. Her instincts are right about Torian. Her instincts are right about Andrew. And she's telling the girls how Jared is gay, and she knew that he was gay, and she knew it was a right thing to do to actually break up with him, and on and on and on. And everybody's saying, "Well, you don't know that. You didn't give him a chance to explain his position." She says she doesn't need to know his position. She already knows. So later on, as they're leaving, guess who she runs into again? She runs into Jared, but Jared is with other people. And so he introduces the guy that he was with as his brother. And on his arm, he has this fine little chocolate thing that's his girlfriend. And his brother, who is also light skinned, has another little chocolate thing that's his girlfriend. And Molly's face just dropped because Issa and Kelly looks at her like, your instincts were right. So if you're wrong about this, what else are you wrong about? So later on, we see Molly and Issa because Issa is staying over at Molly's place for the evening right after the show, and they're talking. And they're going back and forth, and Molly tells Issa that Nathan showed up, and she got rid of him. And Issa gets upset and says, "Girl, how come you didn't tell me that he showed up?" And she says, "Girl, I didn't want him to ruin your birthday," but she says it wasn't your place. And so Issa's checking her. Not only wasn't your place, she says, what she's saying is you're letting your relationship with Dro color everything that's gone on with Andrew, with me, with everybody that's around you, with your job. She says, you're doing too much. You're alienating me. You're alienating the people at work and your coworkers and even Andrew because you think your instincts are right. And so Issa's kind of pissed and she walks out and she goes into the next room to go to sleep and leaves Molly there to stew. So it looks like Molly has had an epiphany, or at least it seems like Molly has an epiphany. You never know with Molly. But you see the next day she calls Andrew trying to make amends. And one thing I must actually say about this, Andrew has his hair down, and Andrew has very long hair. I think Andrew's like half Filipino, and he has very long hair. And on Twitter, the black women are actually going crazy over long hair. So if Andrew didn't have any black followers, black female followers before, he does now. All of a sudden, Asian Bay is has gone from kind of cute to a stud just by letting his hair down. So what does that tell you about black women in hair? Anyway, she's trying to apologize to Andrew. Andrew's not having it because Andrew doesn't like the way he was treated, which is significant because when she walks into work and she wants to talk to Torian about the case, about the account, because she's co-lead, Torian tells her that he's not on it anymore, that she has it by herself. And she says, well, who's going to be my other co-lead? And Torian says, I told the partners that you have it. You got it. You can handle it. In essence, you don't play well with others, and I, rather than fighting you or worrying about you going behind my back, I'd rather you do it alone and I work on another case. So Torian walks into his office, and guess who's sitting there? The two women that Molly has curved, and they give the kind of half-hearted congratulations. In other words, Molly's realized that she's alienated her coworkers by being her fire self and her fire and aggressive self. So all the stuff that Issa has been telling her, she now realizes. First it was Andrew, then it was Drode, then it's Issa, and now she's getting the final verdict from her coworkers. Because Issa told her, you doing all this stuff is not really you. In other words, the Molly mask is not really you. And you're letting the Molly mask, you're letting this mask, this persona take over and damage your relationship with everybody else. But we'll see how long this integration between Molly and the Molly mask actually continues. Anyway, I know I'm rambling. Let's get to Issa. 30th birthday. First time we see Issa, Issa's doing what? She's decided to put Nathan in the background and work on her project. So we see her actually going from vendor to vendor, trying to get people to sign up and get behind her event. And she keeps getting these no's. She tries to get artists, the local artists. She still gets no's. And so she gets discouraged. She gets discouraged. That's when she actually goes to lunch. And she's telling Molly about all the problems that she's having and how hard it is and how she's going to put this event on hold because she's so discouraged and it's a lot harder than she thought. And funny enough, it's funny how when something goes wrong, they can always find a black man to blame. Okay. Now she's blaming some of her failure on Nathan because Nathan made her believe that she could do this. Even though the clerk that was inside the office when she's filling out these forms says it takes about a year. But because Nathan pumped her up, she thought she could do it in 30 days within a month until she gets out there and finds out that she can't. And she's complaining to Molly. So that is interesting how a black woman can always find a black man to blame for her failures no matter what. It's hilarious. So Issa says, I just want to kind of forget everything right now. It's my 30th birthday. I just want my 30th birthday to be happy. Because her 29th birthday wasn't too cool because she was trying to break up with Lawrence on her 29th birthday. So here she is all by herself, struggling with no man on her 30th birthday. So Molly's got her birthday all planned out. So we've already gone through the bit where they're in line and they see Lawrence and they're talking and whatnot. So something very interesting at the end of the event, after her and Molly and Lawrence and Kelly all sit there, have a good time drinking wine, and they're at the event, at the movie. Towards the end, she sees Condola at her booth, handing out cards and whatnot, right? So she approaches Condola at her booth and she has a discussion about the event and how she pulled it together, and they're commiserating. She's telling Condola how she wanted to do things and how hard it was, and she kept hearing, and Condola says, you keep hearing no's. And she was wondering, how do you change that? She says, you just have to be persistent. You turn a no's into yeses, or at least be persistent enough to hear, fine, just leave me alone. And she has found almost like a mentor, because somebody's already done it. And they exchange information. So fast forward to the point where we see, guess who? Condola and Issa having coffee. And Issa's bouncing her ideas off of Condola. And Condola's all hyped and saying, I can help you. I can help you find vendors. And she said, well, how about groups? She says, I know a guy that from a record company's A&R. We can help with groups. And so now Issa believes that things are possible if you put in work. Remember at the very beginning, I played Captain Walker's quote, you have to make your happy ending and shit just doesn't happen. Issa has decided to make her happy ending. She's decided to put in some work. Instead of wishing and believing that magically things are actually going to happen, she's decided to try to turn those no's into yeses, because now she has a mentor that's telling her how to walk the path. We've also seen her in looking for a job at the nonprofit, the musical nonprofit. So Issa's decided to take control of her life instead of letting things happen. So everything is starting to form for Issa. For whatever reason, her 30th birthday is marking a transition. But she always looked for it at the 30th birthday to mark a transition. So they walk out after getting coffee, and she offers Condola a ride, a lift. She says, I do Lyft. Condola says, no, thank you. I have a date. And of course, we all know who the date actually is, which was a shock to most of the people watching. So Issa goes home. She sees the flowers. She reads the card, and she finds out the card is from Nathan. The flowers are from Nathan. She kind of sighs like, okay, this is the last thing that I have to handle. So evidently she calls him, and later on she meets him downstairs, and she gives him that look like, okay, it better be good. And Nathan tells an ambiguous story about when he's got issues and things get rough that he can't handle it, and he's been back in Houston for the last month. So evidently the fight in the lift, and maybe, I don't know if the guy's pressing charges or what, but he decided to jet back to Houston and hang out until he got his stuff together. And he says when he's under stress like that, he can't really talk to people, which means that he's damaged. And all the things that she put into Nathan makes it even worse, because before she thought he was just being an asshole. Now he may be damaged, which actually put him on a different category, on a different position, because now he's not just being a regular guy that's being a dick. He's a guy that may have issues. And she should be cautious, because if he's doing this, there's no telling when or if she decides to be with him, that this is going to happen. So basically, she looks at him, she sends him off, and she goes up to her apartment. And lo and behold, we see, instead of boxes and crates and stuff in an empty apartment, evidently for the last 3 weeks, she's been moving in furniture. And the last piece is her pictures and a brand new couch. So we see her putting up pictures and making sure they're in the right place. And the very last coup de grace is what? To take the plastic off her brand new couch. Just like when she was with Lawrence, putting out the old couch signified a change in their relationship when they bought a new couch. Now she buys a new couch to signify a change in her life. And instead of being in limbo with a barren apartment, she decides to take life by the horns and make her happy ending by furnishing and relaxing in her own apartment. As she lays on her couch with her remote and turns on the TV, she smiles. She's ready to put in work. And that will basically conclude my semi-review of Insecure's finale. But there's one little addendum I want to put in that kind of bothered me just slightly. If you made it to the end, then you'll catch this. It's about Kelly. Now, when Lawrence was smashing and he was kind of reckless with his penis, all of Twitter, all the women jumped on him about him being reckless and him getting him chlamydia. And it was embarrassing, and everybody said how bad a guy he actually was. Lawrence was a savage and shit happens. But nobody said anything about Kelly. Kelly was talking about Tiffany's baby because Tiffany has decided to make her a godmother. In case Tiffany dies, then she would assume the mother role. And she didn't like to think about death because she didn't know if she wanted to take care of a baby. And everybody reminded her that, the baby still has a father in case Tiffany does die. And Kelly sighs, but she said something that bothered me that none of the women caught. And I'm surprised. Actually, I'm not surprised how judgmental black women are of black men, but not of themselves. And sometimes black men are more judgmental of themselves than not of the women. She said something that bothered me that very few people caught. She says she's glad that Derek is going to be there because if she wanted a baby, she'd have kept the last one. And it slipped through. Nobody caught it. In other words, Kelly has had a series of abortions. And in our culture, abortions have become so normal that joke can fly and nobody catch it. Lawrence catching chlamydia, which is an STD, but it's not a major STD. A simple antibiotic will get rid of it. But having an abortion, which is a major procedure and a life-changing procedure, that slips by and nobody says anything. That kind of shows you where we're at. And I've looked through the Twitter lines and nobody has said anything about it. I may have to do something separate about that because that line kind of bothered me. And it kind of bothered me when she said it and Issa and Molly blew it off like it was nothing. Interesting. But with that, I'm going to jump off here. This is BGS out, and I will leave you with my rambling commentary to sift through. I hope it made sense to you. I tried to make it as much sense in it as I could, but I don't know if I did. Well, anyway, BGS out, and I'll see you guys on the next one.